On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon announced the unilateral suspension of the convertibility of the US dollar to gold. That single executive decision, known as the Nixon Shock, ripped the financial anchor from the dollar. It was the moment the currency became pure fiat, constrained only by political discipline. The system that followed allowed for decades of unchecked spending and massive money expansion. The result of that singular act of monetary liberation now stares us down, a colossal, terrifying figure. The number is an anchor around the neck of the free world, $37 trillion. It is a debt so vast, so encompassing, that it has passed the point of being merely a fiscal problem. It is an existential threat to the stability of the global financial system and to the American way of life. This is the $37 trillion deception, a crisis consuming the US economy from the inside out. It prepares the ground for the largest compulsory wealth transfer in modern history. We are not just talking about the principle, but the hemorrhage of capital required to keep the system operational. The annual interest payment on this debt now exceeds $1.2 trillion. More money is spent servicing historical debt than is allocated to entire vital departments. This money builds no roads, funds no research, and buys no security. It is simply tribute paid to the past, a drag accelerating the collapse of the future. The magnitude of compounding interest means the debt is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy of collapse. The Congressional Budget Office forecasts that this path is terminal. Under current policies, our debt will soar past 172% of the gross domestic product in the coming decades. History shows that crossing this fiscal Rubicon signals the financial definition of a failed state. Faced with this unpayable number, a nation has four traditional options: tax cut, grow, or default. Taxation severe enough would crush productive capacity and trigger an immediate depression. Spending cuts deep enough would require dismantling the social contract and the entire military complex. Default, a true repudiation of our obligations, would destroy global faith in the US dollar forever. Governments choose a strategic fifth option, one that preserves the facade of solvency, devaluation. They do not pay the debt. They simply erase its real value through the strategic destruction of the currency. It is a hidden tax, a theft of purchasing power, executed by policy, not by crime. It is the monetary policy equivalent of setting fire to a house to save the foundation. The playbook for this operation has already been written. To truly understand the future, we must first examine the past, the fire of 1933. The United States in the early 1930s was drowning in World War I debt and the Great Depression. President Franklin D. Roosevelt understood that to save the government, he had to act with extraordinary authority. On April 5, 1933, he signed Executive Order 6102, a profound betrayal of trust. It made the private ownership of gold coin, bullion, and certificates illegal. American citizens were compelled to surrender their physical gold to the Federal Reserve. In January 1934, Roosevelt revalued gold to $35 per ounce through the Gold Reserve Act. This single administrative action instantly generated a massive, non-taxable windfall for the government. For the citizens, the dollar instantly lost over 40% of its real value. The government saved itself by destroying the purchasing power of the currency its citizens were forced to hold. The second precedent came in 1971, the moment of total decoupling. For decades, the global financial system operated under the Bretton Woods Agreement. But mounting costs led to an outflow of gold reserves, draining the US Treasury. Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar to gold, the Nixon Shock. This action officially ended the gold standard and removed the last vestige of discipline from government spending. It created the pure fiat currency system we live under today. This removal of the anchor made the current $37 trillion debt inevitable. The debt is historic, but the tools of the reset are modern and sophisticated. The mechanism remains the same. The government must strategically position key assets. When the financial crisis hits, they will reset the price to technically balance the books. The first anchor is gold. The US officially holds over 8,100 tons. But here is the monumental absurdity. It is still valued at the statutory price of $42.22 per ounce. The US is deliberately undervaluing a true asset worth $770 billion to a mere $11 billion. Why maintain this deliberate falsehood? To provide maximum space for the planned revaluation. When the system fails, they will declare a strategic reserve price necessary to erase the debt. This price, the theory suggests, could be as high as $20,000 per ounce, instantly generating over $5 trillion in wealth. This is not honest money. It is a balance sheet trick designed to announce solvency to a terrified global market. The real sign of the high-tech deception is the integration of cryptocurrency. The government is preparing its digital asset reserve. The US already holds massive amounts of Bitcoin, over 210,000 coins seized from criminal enterprises. Legislative efforts are working to classify Bitcoin as a strategic national security asset. The stated rhetoric is about innovation. The covert reality is about creating a future vehicle for debt elimination. The plan: quietly accumulate this digital gold reserve, perhaps up to 1 million coins. At the moment of the financial reset, they will declare a strategic reserve price of $1 million per coin. This move would create trillions in paper liquidity, allowing the US Treasury to technically balance the books. These revaluations, gold to $20,000, Bitcoin to $1 million, would be the precise measure of the dollar's destruction. They are not movements of prosperity, they are markers of collapse. This deliberate policy action will trigger a seismic shock in the domestic economy. The dollar will lose 70% or more of its purchasing power in a short, intense period. We will enter a devastating period of stagflation, high inflation, low growth, and rising unemployment. The most visible sign of this collapse will be the soaring cost of essential goods. Food prices will skyrocket, driven by a global commodity market that operates on hard currency. Housing will become unattainable in nominal terms for the average citizen. The middle class, the traditional holder of long-term dollar-denominated assets, will be vaporized. Their life savings, while numerically intact, will lose the vast majority of their ability to purchase. This is the central purpose of the operation, the great wealth transfer. The $37 trillion debt burden will be reduced in real terms, paid off in cheaper dollars. The debt is effectively liquidated not through default, but through dilution. The final domestic mechanism to control the fallout will be the introduction of a central bank digital currency, CBDC. This CBDC will be the digital version of the devalued dollar. By replacing cash, the central bank gains unprecedented power to enforce policies. This is the final layer of control necessary to manage a currency that is being deliberately destroyed. We are not alone in this impending reset. The world's central banks see the exact same data. Central banks worldwide have been buying gold at a historic, frantic pace. Nations like China, Russia, and India are leading this charge, quadrupling their historical buying averages. This frantic accumulation is the signal of the global asset reallocation. The BRICS nations are actively working to create alternatives to the US dollar. China and Russia are strategically moving away from the US Treasury market. Their goal is to create a viable, gold-linked trade mechanism outside the US-led SWIFT system. When the US revalues its gold to $20,000, it provides global political cover. Every nation with significant gold reserves will see their own debts devalued and assets revalued. It is an implicit, coordinated reset where every government gets to erase its debt. The dollar, having served as the world's reserve currency for 8 decades, will find itself unable to function. This leads to the fragmentation of global trade into rival currency blocks. The lines of this crisis are starkly drawn. The winners in this scenario will be the institutions that control the physical assets. This includes the government and the early, strategic holders of hard assets like physical gold and Bitcoin. The wealthy, who own real, productive assets like real estate and businesses, will also be winners. Their nominal net worth will explode, preserving their purchasing power through the reset. The losers will be the vast majority of global society, the holders of dollar-denominated paper. This includes the middle class, retirees on fixed incomes, and massive pension funds. They will be repaid in devalued dollars, watching their life savings evaporate. The American dream, currently denominated in dollars, will be destroyed by the very entity sworn to protect it. The narrative has been set. The policies are in motion. The government will sacrifice the dollar to save the state. The global asset reallocation is underway, the final, destructive act of the $37 trillion deception.